Welcome to Breakfast Central on a Wednesday morning. Thank you very much for joining us. To our viewers here in Lagos, Nigeria, across the country and across the continent. And for those joining us online, thank you very much for starting your morning with us. It is back to work, of course, as the public holidays have finally over. And we'd like to, of course, join you to join the conversation sometime around 8 a.m. this morning, where you can make your phone calls and share your thoughts with us on the stories making headlines across Nigeria. I am Osaogie Ogbawa.
And I am Olive Emodi, thanking you for being a part of the show. We hope you enjoyed your holiday, for those who had to, who had the opportunity to enjoy the holidays. And for the rest of us who had work all through the holidays, well, it's same old same. A number of things have been happening in the political space, from the drama regarding the clash regarding the intention to buy a jet to the Rivers State political saga. It's been one story at a time. It just feels like everything is unfolding back to back. But before we get into all the details of that, I want to talk about the word steez, which has been redefined by a photograph that made way to social media yesterday. The Ojude Oba Festival happened yesterday, and it was an opportunity to celebrate the beautiful culture, the people, the tradition of the Ijebu-Ode people. They all had to come. I hear that Ojude Oba means the forefront, the king's court, where all of them come and they sort of display in front of the king of Ijebu-Ode, and it houses about 1 million people. So it was just an interesting show of Yoruba culture, and I wanted to find out to you maybe what were the highlights to you, what were the most exciting photos you saw, and the things that stood out for you.
I honestly don't know much about it. I just know that I see those pictures every year.
Yes.
And every year it always trends, across Nigerian social media. I remember from 2021, 2022, and this year also, there's always been one day of the year, and I've never really followed through with understanding exactly, what, the festival is about. But I know that it is a festival that fully displays Yoruba culture and the attires, and, they're very, very beautiful and colorful dressing. And I like the fact that they put in a lot of effort, with the different groups, that had their different fabrics, their dire fabric also. I remember I saw your tweet, to a person. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It seems to be pushing at some adire.
So he did a number of the photos. In fact, the first time that I saw the Ojude Oba Festival, it was from Ni Ifagbemi's post from last year. I remember, I don't know if you remember the video where they used Gongo Below Thunder, and there were different pictures.
Yes.
That's the first thing I remember when I think of Ojude Oba. And it just highlights again the importance of visual storytelling, the importance of photographers, videographers, journalists, and the role that they have to play in preserving our culture. Because this is a tradition that has been in the 1800s. It has taken different forms over the years, and different.
And photography has.
Yes, and a number of us don't know about it.
Yes.
But we then come to know about it because of the photography and the videography
Very
that
true.
has made way to social media.
And the more we are able to share these stories, through videography and photography, it encourages more people to even participate. I'm sure that next year there's going to be even more people show up there. There's going to be more brands, that want to be associated with it, because I saw that he also tagged a particular bank in Nigeria that may have sponsored or partnered with them, with the Adire funding and the Adire fabrics. It was really beautiful, and I enjoyed seeing those pictures. Once again, I enjoyed the effort that was put into every single one of them. If you look at the outfits, they all, you see a group of like 20, 30 people dressed the
same thing. And it's not just that they're wearing the same outfit. For a number of them, they're wearing the same outfit, the same accessories,
yes,
the same shoes.
Yes.
So I saw the ones where the women had the same necklaces, the same shoes, the same gele, the same earrings. And I was like, come on. Just look at this steez. And in case you don't know what the meaning of the word steez is.
I would throw up the next time I hear that word.
Steez. Steez, 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 steez. Steez all over the screen. And I
like it. I totally like it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
And if these are some of the things that we do across the country every now and then, that unite us once again, that make us appreciate our culture, that make us appreciate where we're from and the beauty that is Nigeria, then we should do this more often, and it should be done across the whole country. If there was an Ojude Oba,
yes,
similar in the South, in the Middle Belt, something in Benue, something in Northern Nigeria, across the whole country, we should do more and more of this, but it's very, very interesting.
Very colorful.
Judith is joining us now with Breakfast Headlines. Judith, did you get to see these pictures yesterday.
I've seen the videos, the photographs, and same from last year as well. Of course, I was listening to Olive when she was talking about it with the very popular Lagbaja song Konko Below, and how the videos really just it was very interesting, and people started to make memes out of it. It was yeah, I have seen the videos, and it's a very, 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 very colorful celebration of our culture and the Yoruba culture in and of itself. So yeah, I have.
And I think that we can all agree that the winner of this year's Ojude Oba is the man whose photo has been the most viral in this one, and everyone's having a crush on him and tweeting about him, talking about his tattoos and all that. And that's on a much lighter note. But I think the takeaway for me from this is the fact that we need to tell our stories. We can't wait for, there's so many cultures and traditions that will die if we don't celebrate them and tell them through visual storytelling. So we need to tell more of our stories, and that's one. And two, I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for the Ministry of Tourism around the world to think of how we can celebrate our festivals like this, celebrate our culture. According to what I saw online, I saw that it has about 1 million people. There are people who fly back into the country. We can make this into something big. There are people who travel for, all these Afrobeats concerts that are happening in different parts of the world. They're traveling for the festivals happening in the Caribbean, all the street parades. This can be our own version where we celebrate lavishly our culture, have people, ministries of tourism around the world partner with us to be able to showcase this culture to the world. I think that it will be a great avenue for revenue generation. It would be a great avenue to spotlight the beautiful parts of our country, of our culture, of our tradition. And cheers to everyone who's made this happen. And yes, I said this on Twitter, and I'll say it again, on X rather, and I'll say it again, that Ni Ifagbemi is who he says he is.
Yeah. Because of photography?
Yeah, he's a photographer, videographer, storyteller.
Well, it's not the only one. There's a lot of photographers who...
Well, I'm saying that because he was the one who I saw the pictures from first, and he just sort of eventually makes them into some short movie. Last year he did I think a 3-minute movie on YouTube, and it's beautiful, rich, colorful display.
Well, I'll celebrate. Judy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that I've been lucky to live in the major regions of Nigeria, so the north, the south, and the west, right? And if there's one culture that I know that is very, very popular in the West, was also the Oro Festival. I happened to have schooled in Ogun State. And for the South, that I lived in Calabar, and I lived and worked and schooled in Calabar, there was the Ekpe Festival, there was the Loboku Festival, there was the New Yam Festival. All of these festivals were hugely celebrated, both in the indigenes that lived in those states and also in diaspora. And kudos to the photojournalists who have done this. But I think that the reason why this is getting so much attention is social media. All of these other festivals are honestly being celebrated. When you go to the East as well, there's a very popular festival. Now, I cannot give you a particular name, but I think it has to do with the Obi of the certain of that area. And so there's also towards the end of the year festivals where they have the New Year festivals, where they have masquerades that come out as well.
Yeah.
A certain type of masquerade that comes out as well. So these things are very celebrated, right? They still exist. They are there. It's just that they don't have as much media. And by media, I mean social media in terms of coverage and conversations such as this.
I agree.
Now, who are the people that should be making those things? Those are the organizers, the government, the state government, the councils who are involved, the traditional councils that are involved in this. For example, the Ekpe Festival, which happens, I think, at the eve of a new year, it's really big because the men of all of the leading clans in Efik culture, they always come out and they accompany this masquerades to a certain place, and it's huge. And you see people, not only indigenes in the state, but indigenes outside the state and those in diaspora who are back home. They always celebrate this thing. New Year Festival, I haven't been to my hometown, my village, in 2 years or 3 years since my sister's marriage, but we celebrated every single August and October. And so it's very, very important that these festivals are celebrated. The only thing is they don't have as much, conversation as we're having now because of social media.
The power of social media, the power of visual, the power of pictures, the power of, in every single way, we should, introduce and, of course, support more of these things And of course, put them on all social media platforms and all media platforms that we can. I like the fact that Governor Dapo Abiodun was also there. He was one of the people who definitely supported it. But, it would encourage more brands to also bring funding, if there's that need. You also mentioned, the Ekpe Festival. There's the Argungu Festival that happens, and there's many of them happen in northern Nigeria that, these stories need to be told. The Ministry of Tourism, what are they doing?
There's something I just need to...
Even the state, a Ministry of Tourism in every state.
Yes.
Ollie, please go ahead.
And I agree with you, all the ministries of tourism, the commissioners, we need to see more hands on deck. But then again, this just also reminds us that we have an insecurity problem and an insecurity challenge that needs to be fixed. Because if we're expecting more Nigerians in the diaspora to come and be a part of this, they need to be sure that when they come back for these festivals, they will not be kidnapped. And that,
honestly, Olive, remember the
Yeah.
Christmas festival, the Calabar Christmas festival, people would travel by road to go join to do the Christmas carnival in Calabar. And now it's changed completely. No one's going to travel by road.
I mean,
again.
I just wanted to point that out because it is a problem. But let's leave it at the sweet spot that it is.
Before we go, I want to
to
quickly chip in. You mentioned, the man, and I just want to, also mention his name is Farouk Oreagba. I hope I got it right. And he's the MD of NG Clearing. Here in Nigeria. And what I loved about his picture going viral is the fact that you can have a very interesting and productive and successful 9-to-5 and career life and still be able to have participate in all social activities. And that's what I loved about it.
And it destigmatizes the stigma
Yeah.
surrounding people having tattoos, I believe. Is that...
There's that also.
Yeah, because
but
typically, once they see you with tattoos, they just assume that you're an irresponsible person. But yes, I totally love that picture. And thank you to all the photojournalists, videographers, and everyone who ensured that we partook of this beauty that is the festival.
And we'll begin breakfast headlines in Nigeria, where Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has directed heads of local government administration to take charge of the 23 council areas of the state. Now, this follows Monday's expiration of the statutory 3-year tenure of the elected chairman, vice chairman, and councillors. Fubara gave the directive Tuesday morning in a statewide broadcast. He thanked the elected chairman and councillors for their service, which, according to him, expired on Monday. Recall that the Gama and Asari Duro councils were enveloped by anxiety as youths took over the secretariats following the expiration of the tenure of chairman, councillors, and other council officials on Monday. And still with Rivers State, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has convened a Security Council meeting with heads of security agencies following recent political developments in the state. The meeting was held behind closed doors at the Government House in Port Harcourt on Tuesday. After the meeting, Fubara told the press that discussions centered on strategies to contain the invasion of local government secretariats. He cautioned the immediate past council chairman against harboring false hopes of returning to their positions. Fubara, however, raised an alarm over an alleged plan to his opponents to arrest his supporters. Still with Rivers State's crisis, the chairman of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, Rivers State Chapter, Orwell Ihuda, on Tuesday narrowly escaped death as protesting youths chased him along Moscow Road in Port Harcourt, the state capital. Ihuda, who is the outgoing chairman of Port Harcourt City Local Government Area, was on his way to the council secretariat with some aides and security details when the incident occurred. It was gathered that he had alighted from his vehicle and tried to make his way into the council, but met a group of youths who occupied the entrance. Recall that the state Ogun had vowed not to vacate office after the expiration of their tenure on June 17th. And away from Rivers State and out to Kano State, the 2023 presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, has accused the All Progressives Congress-led federal government of succumbing to ill advice from those he described as enemies of Kano State. Kwankwaso made the remark during the flag-off ceremony for the construction of 82 kilometers rural road networks in his hometown of Madubi by Kano State Governor Abba Makarbi Yusuf. The accusation follows the ongoing emirate tussle, where federal security agencies have reportedly been supporting the disposed Emir of Kano, Aminu Ado Bayero. Kwankwaso, a former governor of the state, emphasized that the people of Kano would not tolerate any attempts to undermine the state's constituted authority. And now on to East Africa. Kenya's government has walked back plans to impose multiple tax hikes, announcing amendments to a controversial bill that sparked angry protests. Now, hundreds of mostly young demonstrators assembled near Parliament on Tuesday, with police firing tear gas and making arrests. Hours later, the presidency announced that it would scrap many of the bill's most contentious provisions, including taxes on bread and car ownership. The new taxes contained in the finance bill were expected to help the cash-strapped administration generate some 346.7 billion shillings to boost revenue and cut government borrowing. In addition to the proposed motor vehicle tax, the amendments will also do away with increased taxes on financial and mobile services. And on to Southern Africa, where South Africa is all set for the presidential inauguration, which will take place on Wednesday at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Now, this is after Cyril Ramaphosa was re-elected as the president of South Africa at the first sitting of the National Assembly of the 7th Democratic Administration, which was held in Cape Town. Now, Section 87 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa prescribes that the President of the Republic must be sworn in within 5 days after his or her election by the National Assembly. Regional and international visitors are expected to grace the occasion. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. It's back to Osa and Olive.
Thank you very much. Of course, Rivers State made headlines a lot yesterday, and actually, since the start of the week. One of the things we're going to be looking at today, but, interesting to see the developments yesterday. Interesting, but at the same time, very sad to see how things, have turned out in the state. There's been no week of, rest for the governor or for, any of the major political figureheads in the state. The 23 local government chairmen also, have made the news. I'm looking forward to seeing how things turn for the rest of the week and even next week.
Likewise.
All right. Thank you very much, Judith. We'll see you again much later this morning.
Most welcome.
Now, let's get into the conversation proper to see what the top stories are. But we'll be back to talk about this after this break.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Calm and normalcy seem to have been restored in Bukuru Market, where irate youth, most of them traders, had clashed with the task force of the Jos Metropolitan Development Board, who were on an enforcement drive. News Central's Chizobanyo was on the entourage of the Command of Operation Safe Haven, Major General Abdusalam Abubakar, who visited the affected area for an on-the-spot assessment of the incident. And Chizoba tells us more in this report.
One would say it is unfortunate this incident is coming just 4 days after News Central had held a town hall in Jos for the restoration of peace in the state. However, on arrival at the market after the incident on Monday, some traders had opened their shops for business as usual, while some others were seen standing by theirs, undecided on whether or not to join others. None of the traders foresaw what happened the previous day, and so they are skeptical about how the day will go, especially with the heavy security in place to ensure no further breakdown of law and order. However, as at the time of filing this report, no member of the JMDB task force was seen around the market, but some of the victims of the incident spoke to us.
In their clear terms, they say, Kafito Arnaza Mukesheka, that's come out and infidel, we will kill you. They knock, and then one of them said, I Suduga Sungudu, literally translated as they have left already. And then they continued with what they were doing. And to the glory of God, I was there with my two kids, my staffs, and others. And then one of them now said, let's buckle the shop and see whether the infidel is inside. One of them said, allow them, they will roast inside from the smoke that is coming from the burnt cars. My car, my wife's car, 4 other cars were actually burnt.
He wasn't part of this, and look at he's in 200 level, low school. You understand? And this is the father of the boy, a limper. You understand? He managed to pay the school fees and take care of his son, his only son.
Please, we are begging the government to come and intervene on this matter. We, the women, we are not happy. The mothers, some of our children that are coming up, they kill them. We are not happy with what happened. So the government should know what to do.
If there is anything from government that they want people to obey, they could have just select the leaders and go to the table, sit down and trash this, because a lot of people are hungry and this is the way they can come here and get their daily bread. So what happened was unfortunate, and I hope this thing is not going to happen again.
One of the major questions on the lips of many who spoke off record include, why would the JMDB, a government agency, work on a public holiday? And among others, why would the security men from the police, civil defense, and DSS attached to them shoot at people, which led to the death of 2? While those questions beg for answers, proper management of the situation in order to prevent any further escalation is the call of many.
This is actually where some of those vehicles were set ablaze yesterday by the irate youths, but we cannot see any of the vehicles around now. We've been told that they've been taken away, and where they were taken to, we do not know, and so we cannot tell. But as you can see behind me, the General Officer Commanding of 3 Division, Maxwell Kobe Cantonment, and of course the Commander of Operation Safe Haven here in Jos is on the ground to see the level of destruction of what has happened here yesterday. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyowe.
Thank you very much, Chizoba Anyowe, for that report detailing the story and the ordeal that these people have to go through. It's not been pleasant times in Plateau State, even with this particular attacks, with the burning of the vehicles, the loss of lives. There's also been an attack on members of the task force. It's just a lot that's been happening there, which is why News Central, of course, held the town hall to hear the parties, to hear from the citizens living in Plateau State, to hear what their travails are, what their challenges are. And I'm hoping that the government in Plateau State sees the plight of the people there and is willing to do its part to ensure that it brings some sense of normalcy, peace, and security back to Plateau State. Like that mother said, they have kids. These are people who have kids that they have dreams and ambitions for, and all of a sudden you find that their lives have been cut short. It's not a good look. It's not a good feel. And in a nation that's currently battling turbulent economic times, that's not the kind of stories that we want to see in the news. But we'll get some feedback. When we do get feedback from there, we will come back to share with you. And now let's move on to our next story. Political tension in Rivers State heightened Tuesday morning as police fired shots into the air. They fired shots into the air to disperse protesters at the local government secretariats. Protesters were pushing back against tenure extension for local government chairmen.
Governor Sim Fubara had ordered heads of administration to take over from the outgoing council chairman, whose terms ended on June 17th. And despite this directive, former Port Harcourt City local government chairman Ola Olukoyede attempted to enter the council secretariat, but was driven away by protesting youths. We're joined this morning by the chairman, Concerned Rivers State Elders Forum, Precious Elekima. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great to have you. I mentioned earlier that Rivers State seems to have 1 week, 1 trouble for at least the last 1 year, and it's really heartbreaking seeing these developments as they have turned out. But let's first of all get your thoughts on what is currently going on with the local government council chairman, and of course, the reactions from the youths, the reaction from Governor Sim Fubara as well.
Well, thank you. I think as far as I am concerned, what is going on is unacceptable and cannot be acceptable. We're almost looking at a drama that had played out in January 6th in Capitol Hill in the US, where there was a kind of an insurrection over somebody trying to determine when he has to stay in office. And so for local government chairmen who had finished their tenure to insist that they need to have a longer time, as far as I am concerned, that's an aberration. It's unfortunate that this is where we are, but there must be consequences for action. Because if those who have finished their tenure want to insist that we have to stay a longer time, this cannot be viewed with some soft hands. Because now we have a new beginning to somebody insisting that my tenure is not over. How do we solve that problem? We can take a cue with what's happening in the United States, where people are brought to book. There must be consequences for actions.
Yeah, but will they be said to be insistent if they argue that it is the River State House of Assembly that granted them a 6 months extension of their stay? Because the report is that Martin Amaewhule, while he was Speaker of the State House of Assembly, granted them, pushed a bill for an amendment to the bill, rather, to grant them a 6-month extension as heads of those local government areas. Even if Governor Fubara did not assent to the bill, they vetoed his response and, of course, went on with it. So would you say that they are the ones insisting, or they are simply working with what Martin Amaewhule created for them?
There was an order of court nullifying all that was done. Justice Dagojak gave that order. Whatever thing that was done, that's nothing like any extension of time, and it was nullified and everything became voided. So the issue of whether there was an allegation that doesn't exist. You see, we have to understand the meaning of separation of powers. The assembly makes the law. The judiciary interprets the law. You have 3 heads on one neck. The executive, which is the body that executes the law. You have the legislative arm that makes the law. You have the judiciary that interprets the law. So if the assembly says everybody who steals one vote goes for 10 years, and then that is the assembly have said so, and a policeman, which is the executive, arrests somebody who has stolen one vote, he can only arrest, he cannot judge him. So he takes him to the law court. And if the law court says, no, that law cannot stand, as far as we are concerned, such a thing cannot happen. So this man goes through. That's the end of that law. So this is the relationship between the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. So once there is a pronouncement for the judiciary that this thing is null and void and cannot be part of it, that ends that matter. This is a world practice. So for a court to have pronounced that purported allegation or whatever is null and void, that's the end of the matter.
But if we, what would you say to those who argue that if we go back to the constitutional provision for, how things should be run, looking at Section 7 and Section 8 of the Constitution that provide for, the composition structure of the local government, and talking about the fact that it is, the responsibility of the National Assembly in this case to, make decision when it comes to the potential extension of lawmakers' time in office. And, they would say to you that it's not really extension per se, because there was an election that was meant to happen that was not conducted, and we're not quite sure exactly why the elections did not happen.
So what's their business? What is their business when the elections is conducted or not conducted? Their own is to carry their bags and walk away. You see, this constitution is not made to be twisted by people. Nigerians cannot have the impunity. And this is what I want. That's what is going on. And that's why I say that there must be consequences for action. All those who have perpetrated this act, all those who are doing this, need to be brought to book, taken to the law courts, and the appropriate consequences taking place so that it will be a deterrent to others who want to do it tomorrow. It is important, and we're going to press on the governor to ensure that it sets up some form of judicial tribunal or committee or something to look into these issues, and where people are found to be culpable, those people must be prosecuted and judgment given.
So it would seem that our issues here there are issues of law that need to be determined. Whilst there's an issue of constitutional interpretation, there's also the case that has been taken to court and the court judgment. And and also, you know, some would argue that there's also the conversation about the legality of the House of Assembly. Let's also talk about, you know, are you there with us? Okay, great.
Yes, I'm with.
Let's talk about the possibility of what the political undertone in all of this is. We know we see the legal arguments for and against. But what is the political undertone to the drama between, you know, the local government chairman, the House of Assembly, and the governor?
You see, we are talking about government constitution and separation of powers. We have passed the stage of politicking. We have come to the issue of constitution of Nigeria. We have come to the issue of executive, legislative, and judiciary. Where we are now is there must be a process to identify the characters who are behind trying. This is treason. This is treason. Where we are talking now, there is treason going on. And these people, I'm not the one to say under which law they will be charged, but there must be a process. Let it go to the court and let the court pronounce what they are doing was legal, what they are doing has constitutional issues. But right now, there needs a process that must be taken to the judiciary to make pronouncement. Whatever thing I say here doesn't matter. Whatever thing you say doesn't matter. Whatever thing anybody says doesn't matter. But what we are saying is that there must be a process where people are taken to the law courts and let the law courts make their pronouncements.
All right. Talk also about the reaction from Governor Sim Fubara. He addressed the state yesterday and, of course, you know, made his pronouncement. Do you think he's made the right move?
Look, you followed up the drama up to this stage. And the drama you have followed up to this stage, the governor, his hands are tied. He doesn't even know what to do. And as far as I'm concerned, he has done his best. In the circumstances he found himself. But where it is, whether what he did is legal or illegal, what he did is legal. Benue State just appointed caretaker committee last week. There was no trouble. That's Benue State, an APC state. They just appointed caretaker committee. So it is not only Rivers. And the governor, as far as I'm concerned, he has done his best. The issue is that when can we define that people cannot take upon themselves to dictate when they will be in office and when they will leave the office? That is the crux of the matter. The governor needs to set up a judiciary commission of inquiry to know those. We are talking about Nigeria. Look, this is not federal law. This is a small part inside the Nigerian government who are now dictating when they will come to office, when they will leave the office. Forget about all what they have said. But a law court has said all that was done was null and void. So where they are now is that we need to take these people to courts. We need to take them to court so that when one person is found culpable and the appropriate consequences are met on that person, others tomorrow will tell themselves to say, we can't do that. Somebody had died in, is it a Che or Muma local government area? The said people have died. A policeman, that's a government servant, had died. And let me bring another angle to you. Well, some rumors are flying that, okay, these actions were taken, maybe that may attract the federal government to declare state of emergency on Rivers State. What kind of daydreamers are that? Because some local government people feel we will not go, okay, so what we'll do, we'll finish our tenure. We need to create trouble. When we create trouble, in the process, one army man will die, or one policeman will die. Okay, well, maybe army will die, policeman has died, so there's no reaction yet. Maybe one army man will die, there'll be a reaction, so that Rivers State federal government will announce take over state of emergency in Rivers State. I don't think. That's why I don't think that's right. And that's why I say that Governor Fubara needs to set up a judicial commission of inquiry, get all those who are perpetrated these acts to book and send them to the law courts, so that let the law courts define what they have done and make the appropriate pronouncement. If it is legal, let the law court say it. If it is illegal, let the law court say it. But it's not for me to say.
There have been several postulations about what is going on and who are involved. And I'd like you, as an elder in the state, to share with us what your thoughts might be regarding the role that former Governor Nyesom Wike might have to play in all of this.
Well, you see, I'm reluctant to mention Nyesom Wike at this stage because we may just be, it will be like innuendos. But if for any reason he will be fingered into it, let the law take its course. I want to doubt that Nyesom Wike haven't served as local government chairman and had left, haven't served as minister and had left, haven't served as governor and left. Now it is him that will encourage people to say they will not go. I don't want to believe it, but if that happens, I've said let the governor set up a panel of inquiry. Let them recover all those who had been involved in this thing, and let the law courts decide whether there is a breach of the constitution of this country. But I'm saying that all those who are in this thing should know that my simple knowledge, common knowledge says there is treason. This is treasonable penalty. There is treason. Yes. And the law must take its course. Today it is Rivers. Tomorrow it will be in Abia. Before you know it has gone to Nigerians where elected people are now dictating when they will serve and when they will leave. The constitution, which is the very foundation that Nigeria is now standing on, is under threat. And there needs to be consequences for action. This is what I have to say.
All right. Very interesting development. Of course, now we're talking about a court case involving 23 local government chairmen. Also a court case that involves the House of Assembly members, and all of this, pending in Rivers State. Governor Sim Fubara, of course, has a lot on his plate. What we would continue to encourage is peace in Rivers State, and that the people of Rivers State should not be forgotten while politics is being played. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ekelima, and we'll love to speak with you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. We, of course, move from Rivers State and you talk about other issues this morning. The Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, on Monday, faulted a plan by the federal government to buy new aircrafts for the presidential fleet. He described the move as insensitive, while Nigerians grapple with economic hardship occasioned by the federal government's policies.
Now, the presidency, in a swift reaction, described Obi's comment as insensitive, wondering if he would rather have the life of the president jeopardized by flying a faulty aircraft. Special advisor to the president, Bayo Onanuga, stated that the president's current aircraft is over 20 years old and now rickety. This morning, we're joined by the chief spokesman, Obidati Presidential Campaign, Dr. Yunusa Tanko. Good morning, Dr. Tanko. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
What would be your response to the federal government? They have asked a critical question. They're asking if Peter Obi wants the president dead, why would he say that the president's aircraft should not be changed? Do you have maybe any response to that? And do you think that Peter Obi's stance, even since the federal government's response still stands?
But they prefer that the killings and the maiming and the dying high level of loss of the common Nigerians that they already have in existing to be more presidential than that of the life of the president. The president is supposed to protect the interests of the Nigerian people. They are dying in numbers. And you know what? They are dying of hunger. But rather, the chief protector of the entity of the state called Nigeria is rather interested in protecting his own life against the people that he's supposed to defend. What an absurdity. So for us, it's not about the president's life. The president's life is important, very important as well. But then the issue is about staying at home, taking care of the needs of the people. You don't need to be junketing from one part of the country to another or one part of the world to another. It's not about his luxury now. It's about the luxury of the citizens that he swore to protect. So while I read out to you, very importantly, despite the fourth largest economy in Africa, which is Nigeria, the GDP of Nigeria is about 255 billion per capita income of 1,080, with a huge burden and debt to service. We are spending $15 million for our vice president's residence, while the United States of America, largest economy GDP, spent 25 trillion naira, about 10 times our GDP, per capita income of 80,000, and about 80 times these still houses of the vice president, number one citizen of the Republic of Nigeria, or second number one citizen of Nigeria, was built over 100 years ago, that of the US, and compared to that of ours. So you see, they prioritize their citizens' life more than their own lives. We are not saying that the president cannot fly a comfortable and probably a protective airline, but we are saying at this particular point in time, the Nigerian citizens they are in total abject poverty and the total neglect. Care for them, show interest into them. The money that you've been spending, Lagos Calabar Coastal Road, money for university parking lot, money for vice presidential house, money now for buying jeeps, money proposing to buy a presidential fleet for the president. All of this money could be tied down to improve the economic life of the common Nigerian.
Dr. Tanko, may I ask you, like, what's the other alternatives? And I completely hear you and agree with you that the Nigerian citizen has been suffering immensely, and it's really been a very tough time. But when the president has to make trips, if information has come to us, or information out there is that the presidential fleet or the presidential planes are not good, they're not fit to fly, or they're not fit for purpose, what would be the other alternatives? Now, reports reaching us is that he's arrived in Pretoria for the swearing-in of President Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa, and he went with two private jets, I believe, totally ditching the presidential aircraft. So what would be the alternative? Are we saying that he shouldn't travel anymore? Are we saying that he should start flying commercial? Or are we saying that he should probably lean more towards flying private jets as opposed to replacing it?
Let me tell you, for a president who shows interest into the lives of his people, there is nothing wrong with him flying a commercial plane at this point in time to show empathy. Even if it's to get the sympathy of his people and say, look, gentlemen, or ladies and gentlemen, I know we have dwindling economy. I don't need to be grandstanding or flying luxury, because we need this particular money to change the life of the people. The people will believe that, this president cares about us. He's even flying commercial. No, we must give it to him. We must support his cause. This is a simple way of getting the people. It's not a deceit, it's a fact. If for now, I cannot travel with my car because I don't have the money to pay for fuel or buy fuel, I decided to go by commercial. It's just for economic reasons, and then it shows empathy. But when the president decides to juxtaposition the life of his own citizen and protect his own, at the end of it, or when most of them are dead, who would he govern?
Yeah.
So it is not place for Mr. President to go by commercial.
Yeah.
Or even private jets that are economical. It's all possible.
Yeah, I mean, your points are clear there. And of course, if the Nigeria Air project was maybe successful, that would have been an option, I believe, for Mr. President, to use Nigeria Air airplanes. But of course, Hadi Sirika still has questions to answer with regards to Nigeria Air. I want, your thoughts on why do you think that the current administration just doesn't see things this way, and is not interested in doing things the way that you've described to show some level of empathy to the same Nigerians that the government has repeatedly said should sacrifice. They've repeatedly spoken about sacrificing to the Nigerian people, but it seems like they don't have any interest in doing the same thing, when it's time to splurge billions of naira. So why do you think that is?
Greed and lack of, interest of a nation. They believe that the country can continue to wallow in actual debt and generating resources that is not ours. So they can plunge the country into debt and they don't care. So where the people are the ones that will suffer the brunt of the debt that they incur, the people's thought and mind does not matter. So for me, it's about greed, lack of compassion, and lack of foresight. And I don't want to use the word lack of collective responsibility for the sovereignty of the country. These are some of the, in your house, for example, let's look at it. In your home, when you know you have $100 or 100 naira, and you know that particular 100 naira cannot give you security, it cannot give you food on your table, it cannot enable you to travel, or you cannot pay your school fees. You prioritize your expenditure. Some in a house may even decide to reinvest that 100 naira in order to bring in more money so that they can take care of those particular needs. That is prudency in management of resources. What we don't have is that prudency in managing the little resources that we have so that more can be generated. But they believe that they can easily get this particular money somewhere and stash it personally for themselves and their crony. So it is about personal interest and greed, not about the interest of the Nigerian people. Simple and short.
The former president, of course, before he got into office, promised to sell off, a couple of these planes. That's one of the promises that was made. That eventually didn't happen. I thought that would be important, just interesting to throw that in. Talk a little bit more about Peter Obi and those who criticize, his stance once again and say that this is just grandstanding. He's just playing to the gallery. He probably wouldn't do these, if he was in that position. Okay. Why would you respond to that?
Let me give you a small short story that will interest you. While he was governor of Anambra State, normally people come to government house. There's a huge budget for food intake, they come into the government house and party, enjoy dinner, lunch. It's like a fun fair when you visit the governor in the house. Go to any of the government houses. They will provide food for you when you are invited and all of that. Okay, His Excellency Peter Obi thought differently. People want to visit government house and he knows the cost of this particular implication. Now, this is not to show that somebody does not want to open up his hand and all. The sitting room, and I think I've been to that particular government house, there's 4 chairs for the dining table. 4, the one I've sat on one of them. He said, look, sir, if you want to visit me, there's no need, because I know if you visit me, I have to take from government money that belongs to all of us to bring it in, and then we will spend a lot of money in feeding and all. Why don't I visit you to reduce the cost so that we can use that particular money for something else? These are practical examples. Those particular money, even money meant for security votes and, that's supposed to be unaccounted for by Peter Obi, was used for the interest of the people. That's prudency in spending. Some will call it stinginess. No, it's fuga. So he has practicalized it while he was a governor. That was why he was able to achieve a lot. So many of our leaders as of today will spend so much humongous money in trying to entertain and, get people to buy into their product or whatever they are doing against the interest of the people. When you know you cannot eat more than 1 plate or 2 plates of food, why don't you take this particular money to those who need it at the moment now? That's just what we are saying. At this point in time, you need to see, we just did a simple random sampling of sharing goat, ram, and cow for people. A little boy accosted me day before yesterday. And he said, sir, please, I beg you in the name of Allah, give me some of this particular meat. He's a little boy. And I said, what do you need the meat for? Because you are just a small boy. He said, no, sir, it's not for me. I'm taking it to my mother. My mother, we have about 3 or 4 children. We have not eaten food for this particular Salah. I shed tears. While our leaders are thinking of buying jets, plane, jeep, whatever, they will entertain and have a fun fair in government house. Why the people that they are supposed to govern are in abject poverty? What kind of leadership is that? What? This is everywhere. You find it in the east, and west, and north, and everywhere in this country. Try and elevate. Try show empathy for the people. Care for them. Use these resources for the benefit of the people. Then in turn, they will give you double fold. It's a simple mathematics.
Yeah.
All right.
But the more
okay, go ahead.
ignite them.
All
The
right.
more you put them in the cage, the more you ignite them. You ignite them to rise up instead of assisting them. Why are you not caring for the people that you're supposed to govern? Government is in trust to a hand of leaders, but they completely ignore. That's why we are having insecurity. Hunger is ravaging the land.
All right.
And yet our people are resources to another thing. It's not acceptable.
I want us to, deviate slightly from the presidential aircraft conversation to talk about the article, this feature story by the New York Times, where they had talked about the reality of Nigerians and the current hardship that we have to live through. And the presidency responded to it, talking about it in terms of how, this is how the West portrays Nigeria and how the West likes to feature African stories. I want your thoughts on the feature story. I don't know if you've been able to read it yet, and exactly, your thoughts on the presidency's reaction to this story.
Now, the issue of grandstanding and always in denial is a negative feeling. Whenever somebody raises an issue against you, tell you that, Tanko, I don't like the way you speak too much with passion and you're accused and all. What they are telling me is that I should speak in another tone. So I take their advice as a free consultancy. So when the government is doing something wrong against the interest of the people, it is an advice. Why don't the government take it? I was listening to an article or a video yesterday. And you know the definition of how they define corruption. They say corruption has embedded itself into our system. It is a subject of study that has eaten into the canker-worm and the bloodstream of every Nigerian. That if you are not engaged into corruption, you are not surviving. So we are like built with a corruption tendency. These videos were not made by Nigerians, they were made by foreigners. But that was their study of what we are. So if we don't want to be called black, act white. Just do the alternative. So whatever article is written against Nigeria is what people have seen. I mean, I cannot think about how. Just day before yesterday, people, Kano and the rest of them, the only road that linked the northern part majorly, apart from the one that you go from Nasarawa, Kefi, and head towards Bauchi and all, the major road that links northern part of this country is the Kaduna-Abuja road. Please, I would have loved to share a video with you. The road was packed jam because a vehicle fell down. The road is not motorable, it has issues. It has not been completed for how many years? Now, if a purposeful government with a thinking capacity knew that this is the only road, even patching it will have been even show that you are prepared, that many Nigerians, especially from the northern part, will travel for Salah period. And those from the south will be traveling from the north going to the south. And that was the only major road. That road was not motorable throughout that particular day. Many people spend their Salah period on that particular road. And yet, when we speak, somebody...
Mr. Tanko.
When you go through the road from Kaduna to Abuja, there is no any company that is already ready to work on that particular site. Yeah. They are not there.
All right, Mr. Tanko, thanks for joining us this morning. I know it's going to be an ongoing conversation, of course, as they continue to deliberate on buying presidential aircrafts or not, So I'm certain that we'll have you join us again to once again share your thoughts, as things develop. Thanks for your time, and looking forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. Their action is reasonable against the Nigerian state. They must stop all of this mispriority. They must stop.
All right.
Use Nigerian, not individuals. please.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to see the big stories on the front pages of the newspapers, and also we'll be bringing you in on the conversation. The phone lines will be open and the numbers to call are on your TV screen. Please remember to turn down the volume of your TV set before you call. This morning we'll be analyzing the front pages of the newspapers with public affairs analyst Kingsley Agu. Good morning. It's always a delight to have you.
Yeah, good morning, Oliver, and good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
So, maybe I will say Baraka the Salah, even though I did not get
The Salah didn't Baraka on your side.
Yeah, the ram that they sent to me was overexcited, coming to meet a public affairs analyst and jumped inside the well.
Wait, I saw a video on social media. Was that your ram? No way. At least they even sent ram to you.
But let me say Happy Father's Day to at least it was another day for women to be celebrated. You know, the women, we have about 7, 8. So that little one that we have, let's celebrate ourselves.
Absolutely.
Well, Happy Father's Day to me in advance, you know.
It doesn't matter whether you are here or not.
There's somebody that has my child that hasn't told me yet, but I don't think that.
I also received Mother's Day greeting, even though I don't.
It doesn't mean that you are.
I mean, you have
a father.
nephews and nieces.
Yeah, all those ones that call you big.
Yes.
There are some that will call you Big Dad, Big Daddy, Big Daddy. So don't worry.
Let me not say that.
Who are these? Okay,
But anyway,
let's move on to news headlines and see what the front pages of the papers have to say this morning. And the front page is the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch, Rivers crisis, cop killed as youth dislodged Pro-Wike local government chairman. Fubara meets security chiefs, warns against arrest of his supporters. Police take over 23 local government secretariats to forestall violence. Federal government seeks UNESCO recognition for Ojude Oba Festival. I mean, I think it's a beautiful one. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. Cholera, WHO, UNICEF hold emergency meeting. Experts warn corpers. That will be core members, I believe. Abducted Fuani MD, 3 Lebanese reunite with families. There was also controversy as to whether the police did or didn't in this story. Saraki Abdul Razak trade words over Ilorin Doba attendance. $72 million diversion. Reps panel summons Ajib, NNPC, and others. Federal government offers 17 new oil blocks for bidding. Revenue generating office agencies owe federal government over 3 trillion naira according to FARC. And final story, Kano Emirates Senate denies alleged emergency rule. NBA probes lawyers. That's all on the Punch. Let's move to the Daily Independent.
All right, Daily Independent this morning also starts with Rivers State. It says Rivers Council tenure crisis. Policeman vigilante die as youths protest return of ex-local government chairman. Pull down Wike's statue at Obiakpo local council headquarters. I did see that yesterday.
Yes, I saw that.
Very,
as well.
very interesting. Fubara asks heads of administration to take charge of local governments. Vows to protect Rivers people, condemns plans to arrest supporters. Federal government announces readjustments criteria for awards of oil blocks. Rail track vandalism, theft of electric cables, act of sabotage, says President Tinubu. And also, Labour Party cautions Tinubu against mocking Nigerians with hardship. No confirmed cases of cholera in Abia State. 1 or 2 others because of time. Why control the flights straight into restricted airspace in Abuja, says the NCAA. And also, APC tackles Kwankwaso over claim federal government is creating new Boko Haram terrorists. These are the big stories on the Daily Independent. I'm going to quickly, do we have time to quickly move to the Vanguard?
Yes, let's quickly move to the Vanguard. On the front page of the Vanguard, I'm going to start with a story that has controversy, and I'm hoping that the police can come and clear the air. How Lagos police rescued kidnapped Fuani MD, 4 others in midnight raid. Uniben graduates beaten and raped to death in Edo. This is despicable. Cholera. Some Lagos schools may not resume from break, according to the commissioner. NUPRC adds 17 new blocks to 2024 oil bid round. Nigerians not alone in poverty. Atiku, Labour Party tackle Tinubu. Mayhem in Rivers as Wike Fubara's feud spills to local government headquarters. Resident doctors beg for more physicians at General Hospital Ilorin. And that would be the stories that we have. Okay, finally, NFF accepts Finidi's resignation. Congratulations to them. And that's all we have there. Let's start with Nigerians not alone in poverty. Atiku and Labour Party tackle Tinubu. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been accused of not being sensitive to the plight of Nigerians, especially in the recent times with the conversation about purchasing a new aircraft, which was heavily criticized by Peter Obi and a number of Nigerians as well. But in an address, I did see that online where he was saying that we're not the only ones suffering. Nigerians are not. He said, yes, there's poverty. There's suffering in the land. We are not the only people facing such. But we must face our challenges. We must find a way to eliminate banditry and terrorism so that farmers can bring out food from the farmlands. And this, he said, in Lagos, when he received a delegation from the National Assembly who came to felicitate with him on the occasion of Eid al-Kabir. Would you say that his body language has shown that he's passionate about Nigeria's economic woes?
Well, to me, I'm not seeing any body language, not to even say if the body language is in line to confirm what is actually happening. Because truth be told, that it's over a year now that they've taken over the position of authority, and things are not just in line with it, most especially in terms of security. We have said that it's only a secured environment that you can see prosperity, moving on. And that's why we've had a serious setback, with this that we are currently faced with. If I must tell you, the health challenges that is on the rampage now is as a result of the failure when it comes to this issue of food shortages that we are faced with. Everybody is just preparing whatever they want to prepare without any check, even by the agencies responsible for it. And people are just consuming because it's about what is available for you to take, not in terms of quality or what you just have to see. So when you go out, somebody is just putting food on your table and you've not eaten since morning. Will you be asking the type of water they use to prepare it, or you want to find out the kind of tomato or pepper that they use? All you want at that point in time, because you're hungry, is to consume. Yep. And when you look at what the president is saying, that fine, poverty ravaged everywhere. Our own is peculiar. If people can be migrating from this country to other country and they are giving testimony that they are better off, you ask yourself, with the natural resources that we are endowed with and the level of the intellect that we are, failure in terms of our system has seen us where we are today. Yeah. Because when you look at even the security they are talking about, when you go ahead to make some reports to the security agencies, how swiftly do they? There are times that we have advance notice on some of the issues that will happen. But are we proactive enough to nip it at the bud? You are about asking a question about the Fuani and his team that were actually, I asked myself the question, if that is happening in Lagos, because I know for Fuani MSD, you can imagine those people at that level, they don't walk alone. They have their security orderly that follows them here and there in sophisticated vehicle, and they can still be kidnapped. How much more just an ordinary person that is perceived to be in the class of those guys being taken away without anybody checkmating the activity. So I feel that there is still more to be done when it comes to security of our land, because that is the major focus where we are having this food scarcity. And if you don't tame it now, I think we'll have a worse thing when it comes next year.
Yeah, just to say that when we hear statements like, oh, Nigerians are not alone in poverty, and when they try to use those things as excuses, across the world, oh, there's a global recession, or COVID-19 happened. We're never comparing, or it feels like a poverty Olympics. We're never comparing ourselves with positive things happening in other parts of the world. We're never saying that Nigeria is also, at par with healthcare, with, transportation infrastructure, with, basic, education infrastructure. We never compare ourselves with other countries like that. The presidency and his persons always would say, things. I mean, we're only comparing when it comes to negative things. Everybody's suffering. There's hunger everywhere. COVID-19 affected everybody. There's a global recession. It's never about anything positive.
You see, Osagaitwa will say that when they come out with that statement, I always refer to it as more of political, because when you ask yourself that we are not in poverty, we are in this poverty together. The money spent on fixing the renovating, because it's not a complete
Vice President's house.
Vice President house. We are already talking about getting a new aircraft for Mr. President, of which we consider as important. We speak of so much money that are into several areas. Our power is really not improving. Security is not improving. There is no food. Unemployment keeps increasing on daily basis with people retrenching. So you ask yourself that when you see the flamboyancy on the part of the people leading us, I've asked the question, are there no other vehicles that you consider relatively, lower than 160 million that our leaders can make use of? We know a lot of them have even vehicles that are bigger than what they are actually giving to them. Can't we have in this country where our leaders, because they said they are there to serve, make use of certain, things on their part to say, this is what I'm putting on the table, at least as my contribution, because I understand the pain everybody is going through. It is when we start saying that we know that we are in this poverty to say, what Osags or what this person is entitled to is sacrificing it, all because he understands that there is no fund on some of those things.
Let's quickly jump to River State. It's one of the things that is on every newspaper this morning. I think on the Punch, it says Rivers Crisis Cops killed as a youths dislodged pro-Wiki local government chairman. Same thing with the Daily Independent this morning. We have Austin Azu, who is in Rivers this morning, to give us a live feed from what's going on over there. Austin, can you hear us?
Yeah, good morning.
All right. Seems very calm over there this morning. Give us, live updates. What has River State been like in the last 24 hours?
Of course, I'm currently at opposite the Hotspot Campus, and behind me, about 400 meters away, we will have the Port Harcourt City local government. Currently, the security agencies have controlled the place up, denying everyone access to the place. As of yesterday, the protesters mounted there for a very long time before the security personnel came to disperse them. So this morning, we have the presence of heavy security personnel who are currently on the ground. So because of their presence and they have denied everyone access, we couldn't go further than this place. This is the best we can actually stand at the moment, because everyone who is going there will be asked to revert back. But however, the latest development this morning seems that there are going to be a screening committee for the caretakers who are going to take over the local government across the 23 local government areas of River State. So far, so good. I think it's getting more relaxed, unlike what we had of yesterday. Security personnel have taken over the 23 local government areas at this point in time. So we are waiting for the development as we are told to keep updating whatever is happening here in Port Harcourt.
All right. How would you say that the youths are handling all of this? We've been seeing conversations about protest violence, some level of violence springing up in different parts of the state. And also, do we have feedback regarding how exactly the government, the River State government, present and past, are reacting to this drama?
But we should know that the field between the two factions started in October last year, and the field is still correctly there. What placed that yesterday and consequently before now.
Austin, you seem to have maybe muted your device. If you can help us, with your sound, we can't hear you anymore. Okay, we seem to be struggling with, the sound from Austin Azu. They're just trying to get live feed from him in River State this morning. Let us know exactly what the situation is. The reports say at least a life was lost yesterday with the violence that erupted concerning the local government chairman. Let's bring back Mr. Okwade to share with us, your thoughts from all the developments in River State. 1 week, one trouble for Governor Sim Fubara.
Yeah, I think my perspective to this issue is our politicians should know. It's not about you assuming that you actually brought someone to power and you will not give him the freedom to do. As far as River State is concerned today, the man we know at the helm of affair is Fubara. Governor Fubara, whether it's by intervention of a leader or anyone, we should give him the freedom to carry out some of the things he has actually, while he was making the promises to the governor, to the people of Rivers State, it was not through the influence of any leader. It was him making that commitment. And at this point, I feel I will want to appeal to the Minister of Works to please allow the man to have, the Minister of FCT to please try as much as possible to allow him to have a role. Because 4 years to come, this Fubara will be asking questions. All this drama should be minimized for good governance to operate in Rivers State. And the second aspect to it is, if you look at the reaction of the security agency, I think we should be proactive. We've seen this, we saw this coming, let me put it that way, that yesterday there's going to be this Pro-Weke and Fubara, challenging themselves with what we have. What was our action? I'm happy that this morning they've actually said they've taken over all the local government, at least to tame those 10. I feel that right from Sunday, that should have been what we should have sent the security agency, carried out to tame the activity. It does not worth it we losing life of our citizen on what does not really count in this aspect.
Why would you say, what is the underlying political issue here? Why do you think it's difficult for local government chairmen to simply step aside after their 3-year tenure has elapsed?
Sax, you and I know now, when you enjoy the largesse, it's difficult for you to pull out. Why will you ask a governor that claimed that he has come to serve us for 4 years, asking for return, that he wants to have it the second time? If indeed it's for service and you complain that it's not easy to be on that desk, why will you want to go back? Yeah, but because of the largesse, see, you need to see these people when they are out of office. When they are out of office, most of the time, people that have not been in that office are better off than some of them, because it is about so much power and concentration you are giving to that office. And I think that's what they are enjoying, because nobody checks their activity. In fact, for local government chairman, I'm always saying it, that they are out there, they will complain that the state is really not giving them funds, but the little that they are actually generating as revenue, how many of it are they giving back to the people? So it's about the corruption epidemic that has entered into our politics that is allowing them. Because if you have served for 3 years and you are aware, you know of a fact that your tenure has expired, why are you asking for elongation, even by 1 day? You should go back and allow the caretaker committee to take their leave. That's just the way I feel, that when you know that your term is tenured and you have fulfilled that which is expected of you, go back and let people come and say, okay, let's choose. Allow the empire that is commissioned to do that. If you feel that you still want to give the service back to the people and you have done it the way they should be, go back to the level playing ground and let's see the best that you can do in terms of that. But I feel that because of the corruption and the things they enjoy while they are in office makes them to glue and stick and make it a do or die affair when you ask them to leave office at any point in time.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many areas to look at, right? Beyond that, they would also talk about why the elections were not held, even though some people's response to that would be the fact that the governor has not even had time to actually be governor, because it feels like he's been fielding off attacks ever since he was sworn into office as governor.
If election has not been held, it's none of that does not give you the prerogative to say you are extending your days. Your days expire so period. You excuse and leave the governor to take the decision on the next thing to do. He might even be the one to say, okay, we've considered that we are supposed to hold the election and it's really not working. I'm giving you extra 2-3 months so that we'll be able to fortify, not you fighting or actually pulling your weight against the wish of the governor. If the governor says your term has expired, we no longer. We've seen instances where you will see some permanent secretary after their retirement period, or people in politics, or people will tell them, please, can we have an extension because we've seen the good thing you've done. That is on the prerogative of the governor, not you struggling power to say because elections have not been held, you want to elongate your term in office. It doesn't really, don't let's set precedent that we cannot manage in future.
Even the idea that the governor can, by himself extend, you know, the time of a local government chairman. I don't even think that is right because
it's not. I'm only saying it that rather than you struggling, if it is in the prerogative of the party, it might say, okay, we have actually dissolved the council chairman, but I'm setting up a caretaker committee of which he might still consider you to continue
and
at that point in time.
And you remember that the Attorney General currently is challenging the idea of setting up caretaker committees, you know, in replacement of local government chairman. Why I'm saying so is that every single person in this whole conversation has some blame.
Yeah.
Of course.
Governor Fubara cannot say that, oh, the state has been in so much turmoil, political crisis, and that's why I've not been able.
Yeah, it's really not an excuse. It's not.
That's your personal problem.
And even if he wants to talk about the repealing of the, you know, the amendment that was made to the local government laws, he was aware of whatever amendment was being made. He could have challenged it at the court.
At the court.
I think that they all have.
Everybody has one or two, and it's about interest in all this game.
Again, it is highly politicized. Before we wrap up, in 30 seconds, I really want us to talk about this as quickly as we can. Uniben graduates beaten and raped to death in Edo. I've just looked up the details of the story. Her name is Glory Adekolore Idowu. She was reportedly raped to death on the 13th of June. Now, this young woman, 22-year-old graduate, had finished from school and went back for her clearance when she was beaten, raped, and this is such a terrible way to wrap up the newspaper review. And we're calling on the Nigerian police to please do the best that they can to get justice for Glory. To be honest, when I hear stories like this and the family is calling for justice, nothing really can be justice at this point because there's nothing that they would do that would make her, bring her back to life or make her not have been raped. So the very least we're asking for is to find out who the culprits are and ensure that these culprits face their time, you know, in jail. It's really sad, and our hearts and our thoughts go out to Glory's family.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Sheson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Maybe I will just add to what you have said just in 30 seconds. I had a very sad incident to an Oba with a family, a man who lost his life to one of these truck drivers who drove recklessly, you know. And that's why I will always say our agencies meant to check some of these things you try. We have so many underage driving this truck and they never value the life of other road users when they are driving. Let's just try to take caution, at least to minimize the level at which we send people to untimely death, because it is not actually good for the image of our country as a nation.
Our hearts and our prayers go out to all those who have lost loved ones, unfortunately, due to the failure of agencies to do the part that they ought to do. We'll talk more about these stories. Remember, we do this every day where we review the papers. But for now, we'll go on the break, and when we come back, it'll be time for Which Way Nigeria. Prepare yourself for another thought-provoking monologue.
Now, this year's Eid al-Kabir has been one of the most gloomy celebrations in Nigeria's recent history. Mostly because majority of Nigerians have had to adjust to recent economic realities. Many years ago, in the time when Nigerians were made to believe that their country was completely damaged by the government of that time, the Nigerian people were, even at that time, were never too worried about things like, you know, the price of ram or cow to celebrate religious festivities. But today, the story is very different. While Nigerians are struggling with these realities, President Bola Tinubu, of course, in the news, in his Eid message to Nigerians, once again urged citizens to sacrifice for the good of the nation. Now, this is after saying months ago that Nigerians should tighten their belts, and of course, the other time describing the nation as a pregnant woman in gestation period. Now, the problem here is very clear. Mr. President's body language and actions, along with those around him, completely betray these pleas. The president's actions since resuming office entirely betrays his calls for sacrifice. It is beyond hypocritical to ask Nigerians who aren't even sure of one meal every day to sacrifice, when right from day one, this government appointed the largest cabinet in our history. The government that allowed more than 1,400 people to fly to Dubai for COP28, costing the nation 2.7 billion naira. This same government that spent 90 billion naira to send religious pilgrims for Hajj. This same government that that thought it wise to spend 57 billion naira in importing SUVs for lawmakers? Is that the same government that wants Nigerians to sacrifice? What more does the Nigerian government want from its people? How much more sweat and blood can Nigerians give to show that things are really difficult for them? The same government that took 21 billion naira and splurged it on one house for the vice president. This same government that is now discussing purchasing new airplanes for Mr. President and his vice. That cannot be the same government that is asking Nigerians to sacrifice. Even Basket Mouth or any other comedian would not tell such a joke. Again, Mr. President's body language completely betrays this call for sacrifice. The government came into office more than a year ago and has not one time held itself back from spending billions of naira on things that have almost zero relevance or benefit to the Nigerian people. Name any of the things that you've heard in the last long while that the government has budgeted billions of naira for. There's not one of them that you can say, oh, this one definitely would help the Nigerian people. Not the vice president's residence, not spending 90 billion naira on Hajj, not SUVs for House of, National Assembly members, not for, of course, not the yacht that was bought for 5 billion naira. There's none of them. This government has never thought to itself, maybe no, this current expenditure can wait till later. The citizens are suffering, so maybe we shouldn't, spend this money now. Instead, they have sought out more reasons to waste billions of naira, thereby showing how insensitive they are to the tears of the Nigerian people. I'll end by saying that leadership is really not rocket science. It's also not done through, of course, selling these talking points through media aids. You can start with big words and promises, but it only takes a little time for the people to see the clear dishonesty on your part and on the part of government. And yes, Nigerians can see it. They can see the falsehood each time there's a call for sacrifice or endurance from Mr. President. Again, leadership is not rocket science. You don't need to be an expert or have an MBA in leadership to simply lead by example, to simply show Nigerians that the government is making similar sacrifices that it wants the citizens to make, and citizens will definitely follow you. Good morning, Nigerians.
The chairman of the anti-graft agency, EFCC, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, has said that corruption will become a thing of the past and is defeatable if every stakeholder on the anti-graft corridor makes concerted efforts. His statement re-echoes the words of United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who during his visit to Nigeria urged the current administration to tackle barriers like corruption and difficulty repatriating profits that have dampened the business climate for American companies looking to invest in Africa's largest economy. Now, although the APC government under the leadership of former President Muhammadu Buhari has said that it will tackle corruption headlong, sadly, the reverse was the case.
Now, Nigeria's current practices have a direct impact on the country's socio-economic development. Funds that could be allocated to critical sectors such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure are often diverted, leading to inadequate facilities and services. Now, how can corruption eventually be stopped is a question that fails to get satisfying answers, and we've talked about this for many, many years. Joining us this morning is Kingsley Agu, who is a Community Engagement Director, Connected Development Code. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
You can't stop here because it's a book.
Kingsley, good morning. Can you hear us? I think your device is muted. If you can help unmute your device. Okay. Well, I mean, we'll get the conversation going in a bit, but it's mostly centered around corruption and Nigeria's continued struggle to fight corruption. We have seen as citizens many, many years of these promises being made, of the EFCC and the ICPC being set up, of mostly of continued failure to actually fight corruption. We've heard promises from presidential candidates coming to office, and of course, that is one of the main things that they hinge their campaign on. But eventually, we don't get to see a lot happen. And of course, I've always had the argument that simply arresting people with the EFCC is not fighting corruption.
No, it's not.
If we do not set up institutions and structures that reduce and fight corruption, then we're simply just wasting our time. And we've also found ourselves in a situation where major and strong political, office holders, the high net worth political holders do not necessarily get the same treatment as the regular citizen. So it's not really a fight against corruption, is it?
Well, it's maybe paying lip service. It maybe a desire, sometimes a desire to fight corruption. Other times, a desire for validation from the public, to give the public the impression that you intend to fight corruption. Knowing full well that you're invested in the corruption itself and cannot, you can't fight what you're strongly a part of in some sense. I think that different administrations have seen corruption as a low-hanging fruit that they can dangle for Nigerians, because Nigerians for the longest time have wanted so badly to not be associated with corruption, which has been used to paint a bad brush. We see that the foreign media, a number of times when they're reporting about Nigeria, those are the things they like to highlight on, which is not the entirety of our story, but is a current struggle that we're dealing with. Current administration says that they're fighting corruption, right? Or they said, I think the last I heard was that they're fighting corruption, but corruption is fighting them back. So,
I mean, everybody says that.
Yeah.
They've been saying that for a long time.
Exactly. So it just feels like there's a lot of lip service that is being paid, being paid to the fight against corruption. And like you've mentioned, media trials that are happening. That's not the core of what corruption fighting really is. Yeah. Although the fight against corruption reminds me of the octopus. It's not something that one person can do. I think that it's something that will require concerted efforts from different bodies, because you can decide honestly to want to fight it, but the forces that be will fight against you.
I think we also betray the conversation on the fight against corruption by simply limiting it to politicians and political office holders. I feel like Nigeria's corruption is way bigger than just what a governor stole or what senators approve for themselves. In every ministry, department, and agency, across the country, even in the private sector, there's so much stealing and pilfering that goes on. And that really just shows that there is a level of corruption that simply, it seems to be, engraved in the mentality of a lot of Nigerians. There's also the, levels of corruption that are simply even running a red light, seeking, favors, even if it's not financial favors, but seeking favors, that would benefit you because of tribe or because, of man, no man, and some of all of that. There is that mentality that I feel like no matter how hard you arrest political office holders, you would never really win the fight against corruption, because the mentality of the average Nigerian needs to also change. That's why you find that it's difficult to get free and fair elections. It's difficult to get, the most simple things, in a trustworthy way, because there's a mentality of the Nigerian that, would figure out ways to beat the system and beat the process. It's not just arresting Yahya Bello. Yes, Nigerians want to see that, absolutely. It will be nice to see that. But it's many other things that need to change. And I don't think the fight against corruption would simply be won by empowering the EFCC, alone. There's a lot more, that I feel like needs to be done, to win the fight against corruption.
Right. They say that the people or the leaders are a function of the people. The leaders come from the people, and like you rightly mentioned, it's not just the politicians. It's at the grassroots level.
Not.
It's even in the little things that we do as individuals, as parents. You see parents, for example, that your child should read to write an exam, but instead you go and pay for a special center for your child to read and be quote unquote coached.
Yeah, it's all corruption.
It's fraudulent. It's corruption. It's cutting corners, and I don't know how we are able to. In Nigeria, it just feels like the system, in a way, has been set up to encourage these actions, such that if you want to do the right thing, sometimes you might be frustrated.
Even in the small offices, like even in the small local government offices, we don't have a country where if the head of an agency or the head of finance, and I'm talking about the small agencies now, the ones handling agriculture in Ikbubaoka local government area, or some just very tiny agency, if you find that the director of that agency in that very small place in Agungi or in Ekpe has mismanaged 5 million naira that was meant to, be invested in buying agricultural produce for farmers in that place, we don't have the kind of system that will expose that person. We don't have the kind of system that I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like, we don't have structures on every level of governance, on every level across the country that would expose those little petty crimes here and there, petty mismanagement of funds here and there that happen. And you see that even not permanent secretary, that's even a big thing. Lecturers, in universities, and, people in all walks of life, living above their means, building houses here and there, because they found a way to cheat the system and make money. We don't have the most tiny fabric of a system that should checkmate those things.
So we don't have repercussions for action. Actions don't have repercussions.
You don't even find them getting reported. You're going into repercussions. You're talking about now whether this person will be punished. But we don't even have a system that assures you that this person will be caught, that this person will be reported by the Auditor General of that office.
Even if the person is reported, there's no guarantee that the person who did the reporting will be, protected. It's almost like you are the snitch.
So the very fabric, of our society on every level seems to be infected with the same thing. And so for me, it's a conversation that needs to go beyond strengthening the EFCC. Yes, that one should exist. It's a conversation that needs to go into our mentality as a people. Like when you get to, and this is just very basic, when you get to a red light and you say to yourself, whatever, man, you drive past it, there's something in your mind that I feel is wrong. But that is because we already live in a society that you can beat. If you are arrested or if you are stopped, you can beat that system. And our mentality as a people, then of course, this mentality rather as, that we have as Nigerians, then transcends into everything that we do. Because that nobody's going to catch you. And even when you are caught, there's a possibility that you will still beat the system. Do you feel guilty? Run the red light?
Do you feel guilty running the red light?
I don't. I never do it.
All right,
so,
that's nice.
No, I never do it.
That's good.
And so these are things that I feel like should be a part of the conversation that we're having with regards to fighting corruption. It's not just strengthening the EFCC. That is only going to, of course, maybe tackle major political heads in country, governors, and the likes. Of course, we would excite Nigerians that, Ola Olukoyede is working. The EFCC chairman is an action man. But it's not answering our questions.
There are too many things. I mean, if we want to start delving into it, we'll not have the time to cover it. But it's little things, trying to pay for money to have your contract being approved. Say, no, you do this, I'll give you court because you want to be selected for a contract or for a job. There's just too many layers to this. But then it's just a call to say that as individuals, we should all reflect. Whilst we're throwing stones or whilst we're holding the government to account, we also should take this as some form of reflection for ourselves to see the ways in which we can better strengthen our moral boundaries and we can ensure that, we're not playing a part in furthering the stereotype of corruption. As we wrap up the show, our hearts go out to a senior colleague and friend, Suleiman Alede, who has lost his dad, Alhaji Alede. Pa Alhaji Alede passed at the University of Benin Teaching Hospital, UBTH, at about 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2023. He was 80 years and, of course, loved by his family and loved by all of us here, of course, by extension, because of how we feel about Suleiman. So we want to say from all of us here at News Central, we extend our condolences to you, Suleiman Alede, and to your family. And we pray that you be comforted at this trying time. And this is where we wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast Central. It's been a delight being here. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Remember that you can continue the conversations on social media at News Central TV on all platforms. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.